Greetings doors and welcome to another video. So this is week 9 after last ban list of deck report. I'm piloting the Centurion deck again. I played at 2 locals this past week. They were both on the same place. They were both on Titan Games. One of them I finished X2 and the other one I finished X1, which got me to 3rd place. I'm going to show you the deck and then I'll explain everything that happened in the past week and what made me make the changes that I made to the list, because there are a few changes. But yeah, not wasting your time, let's begin. So we're still on 6 Centurions, 3 Lubellion, 1 of each of the 6s. Triple Seyfert, Black Dragon, White Dragon, Emperor. That's it for monsters. Now for spells, 3 stand-up, 3 more stand-ups, or any other Centurion card. I actually was spawning a Primera a lot with this. 3 talents. 3 Eclipse, I'll explain that later. 2 droplets. Regained bonds called by terraforming chaos space. That's it for spells. And for traps, we're still on branded beast and phalanx. So the main deck should be 40 cards. Extra deck, Striker, IAP, SB, Spheres, Ding, Typhon, Chaos, Packbit, Dispater, Angel, Crimson, Auxila, Legatia, Cosmic, Calamity. So now that you saw the list, feel free to pause if you think I went through quick and to just see specific cards, but I will be giving a synopsis now. So let's talk about the new changes. So the last list played the Rocket Engine. I am not playing the Rocket Engine anymore. What I'm doing now is I'm playing Chaos Space. I'm now playing Book of Eclipse as my new defensive card. I am playing this now. So this 6. And the rest of the main deck should be the same. So we have 10 cards, 10 new cards. I took out the Rocket Engine. I also took out Grand Tusk Dragon, and I also took out the Bystial Aluber. I'll explain why no Aluber and Grand Tusk first. The number one reason I took those out is because in scenarios where you are I'm not gonna say breaking, but you feel like you need to end on spheres, usually 2 things happen. Either I get called by it, or I get Ash Blossomed, and the other one is that they just find a way to deal with spheres before they commit their summons. And at that point, I just thought that I'm just playing 2 bricks in my deck to make this an extra defensive card. And it's not that it's incorrect, it's more that it's not correct for the way people are playing against you. Sometimes you just have to make some contingency plans and just sacrifice ways you're playing your main or side deck because of the way people are just playing around certain cards. Tempai Dragons being very popular means that people are seeing Heretic Spheres being summoned a lot, meaning that people are just getting more and more creative on ways to play around it. And it just takes the surprise factor away of what you're summoning with Heretic Seals. That's why I took those two cards out. I also wasn't facing against the Tempai deck a lot. I was facing against a lot of other decks, and that also takes value away from Bystial Aluber. And I know that Bystial Aluber is like a level 4 tuner, which is something that the deck needs until Infinite Forbidden, but I just felt it wasn't warranted for it to be a brick. Now let's talk about the rocket engine. The reason I took out the rocket engine is because on Thursday, while I was playing the deck, I kept the same exact list as I played at the 3v3, but I bricked on my rocket engine 3 times. And I did the geometric calculator test. The odds of opening the hands I opened with the rocket cards should be less than 10%. However, sadly it kept happening. It happened a bunch of times, and it was very unfortunate. Like, I will say 90% of my losses this past week were to me breaking on my engine requirements, which is very unfortunate because Centurion is a very like consistent deck. Like, you have 14 1-card starters. If you opt for playing Bonfire, it becomes 17, and if you want to rely on other engines, it could be even more. So this deck should realistically be like one of the more consistent decks in the format, despite what other engines I play next to it. But sadly, that was not the case. Like, your breaking will happen with any deck, no matter how consistent your deck is, and sadly, it did not work out for me that very same day. So I thought to myself, if I'm just going to keep drawing redundant cards in the same engine, I'd rather draw these, because despite these being redundant cards, these cards actually can cycle through themselves even with redundancy. And it actually did backfire me once, because my only loss yesterday was to this hand. I opened both dragons and the Chaos Space, and this was a Lubellion, but I sided out 2 Lubellions. So it was a very redundant hand. Again, should not happen. All these 3 cards are limited, so the odds of you opening all 3 should be very low. But it did happen one game, and that's how I lost the match. Every other game that I did not like open this engine like redundant wise, it worked out. The number one reason for Seyfert, and one of the reasons I like Seyfert so much, is because Seyfert can like cycle through a few of your cards. Like, absolute worst case scenario, the Seyfert itself can become these 2 dragons, and you can just make Heraldic Seals while establishing like a +1. If you open Chaos Space, it becomes like a +2, which is even more absurd. But another really cool thing that you can do with Seyfert is that since Centurion Gargoyle is a searchable level 8 dragon in this deck, and you have like 9 ways to get to this card, you can use Seyfert's effect, send the Gargoyle, and the Gargoyle becomes Bystial Lubellion. And that's another reason why I liked this engine, because Chaos Space just became like Rhoda for Lubellion as well. So you essentially had just like more copies of it, which is very good, because if you get Lubellion into rotation, like, you have a lot going for you. I also opened the Gargoyle like a fair amount of times, like even as a one-of. So just having a card that can move out the like the redundant cards in your hand was very good. This is also a material for Striker Dragon. I'm no longer playing Boost Sector, but you still keep this Striker Dragon, because it is a material that you can make out of Seyfert, and it also helps you make SP Little Knight. It helps you make Heraldic Seals. The Graveyard effect to retrieve back Lubellion does come up, because if you cycle everything correctly, you should be able to end on a board that just has Heraldic Seals. You have like the Branded Regained, and something really cool is that if you Branded Regained and you went through your like Bystial line, you can banish the Seyfert, grab back Lubellion, use the Branded Regained, put back the Seyfert, and you have Lubellion as follow-up for the next turn, and you drew an extra card. which is something that I did in the past weekend, and it did won me in one game. So Seyfert was really good this past weekend. Like, it really worked out. Now let's talk about Book of Eclipse. So, as you noticed, I dropped droplets to 2. I kind of wanted another defensive card that was not being played commonly by Crossout, but I didn't want it to be Forbidden Chalice. The reason I dropped droplets to 2 is because I kind of wanted more defensive cards that were good against Dimension Shifter, or decks that play Dimension Shifter rather, and droplets is not one of them. Another really good thing about Book of Eclipse is that it's good offensively and defensively. Like against the Tempai Dragon deck, if you're going first and you have this card set, a lot of people are not going to be focused on like the Book of Eclipse. They're going to be focused on the rest of your board and try to break them. If they don't like Lightning Storm you or like Feather Duster you and you still have this card set, once they go to battle phase and they try to establish their board, you flip Eclipse on them and they have no real way to dodge it because this does not target, meaning that more than not they're just going to already like lose the battle phase. And yes, they do get a couple of draws out of it. However, like them getting 1 or 2 draws does not really matter if they lost their battle phase and they already exhausted half their resources, which is a really big upside to this card. Not many people are playing this card at all, so you don't have to worry about Crossout as well. This card is really good against Voiceless Voice as well, which is like one of the more problematic matchups for this deck. So overall, I think this card is good. This card is also future proof because when Spirit Phantom of Jubel comes out, this is another way to deal with the Phantom of Jubel, as well as have their inboard. Against Snake Eyes, this is also really good because setting the Flamberge means that they cannot use it as a material for IP, and they cannot pop it with Promethean Fire Princess. So you're getting rid of 2 interruptions in one by doing this as well. So I guess that's it for the main deck. Like I had to trim out a lot of things to just make this even 40 cards. Realistically, I would play more than 40, but again, the redundancy issues and the like not so often Centurion hands that I get are just a little bit too much for me to warrant playing this deck over 40. Again, that's all like statistics. You don't really have to follow the math. You can just go outside of the norm and just play over 40 cards. Like some people have gotten away with it, but for simplicity sake, I just opted to stay at 40. The only change in the extra deck is I took out Starliege or Tenyi. I don't remember which one I chose last week, and I just replaced it with Packbit. So since we're no longer playing the Rocket engine, we really don't need another dark level 8 synchro that is really strong. I opted to just switch to Packbit because Packbit is one of the better level 8s in this deck. It is a defensive card. It is a card that can recur itself in the spell and trap. It's a card that also helps you like play around with your Centurion synchros. We're not playing MF in this build, but if you were to be playing MF and you just push these to spell and traps, then you can use Packbit to just resummon these, which is pretty nice. The other the good thing about Packbit that is important, it has 2900 attack, which is very important because you can pair it up alongside Typhon, which does come up. It has come up for me enough times. So that's it for the extra deck. Everything else is relatively the same. The deck pretty much plays the same way even without the Rocket engine. So there's no real need for like swapping cards. The only one that I'm iffy on is Cosmic Laser Dragon, but I did summon it twice this past weekend, so I can't say anything about it. In the future, when Whitewoods become part of the strategy, like Post-Infinite Forbidden, you can vouch for playing more copies of this. However, the only reason the OCG does it is because Calamity is still is on the forbidden list. So if Calamities is not forbidden, then you don't have to worry about that. But if they do, you can just play another copy of this. But that's talk for the future. So side deck. So side deck is 3 Shifter, 2 Druid Swarm, Trudea alongside Wake Up Centurion, COH, Dark Ruler, Cosmic, Duster, and True Awakening. I guess I should explain these first. The only reason these 2 cards are in here is because of Shifter. Like this deck can play Shifter, but there is a contingency plan that you need to follow, and is you need to max out on Trudea, because Trudea is the one card that makes your Centurion combos a 1-card combo under Shifter. You can still play Shifter despite like a few problems that you have, because one example that you usually find is like it conflicts with Seyfert, it conflicts with Chaos Base, it conflicts with Rebellion, it conflicts with the Baby Dragons, and despite it like clashing with the cycling of all those cards, you can just move one of those 2 cards outside of the main deck, and you can just play a little bit with them both, as long as you have like another card that can work alongside them. The Bystials are not bad with Shifter at all, because it works with Dissipator, it works with like Branded Regained. You can banish your Shifter for your Bystials, and just gives you an opening for another Shifter another turn. Shifter is just a game-ending card. It just ends a lot of people's turns. So against specific decks, you don't care about your deck lasting, like being a little bit weaker, if the other decks just cannot play the game. That was the theory behind it. I disliked it a lot. The #1 reason I disliked it is because you're forced to play other cards to make this work, and almost often, more than not, I do not open Shifter at all, and I just end up opening any of these other cards. The one match that I lost, which was the match where I opened the Chaos Base Engine, I also opened this as well, and it was just very rough. So that's it for that. I've been seeing a lot of people main deck this card now, and I will talk about that in another video, because I think it's very important talking about the shift of the format, how people are leaning more towards board breakers now, and this is like one of the more important cards. The #1 reason I did not play this card in the main was because of Eclipse. I wanted more defensive cards that just worked both going first and second, and Dark Ruler strictly just works going second. Droplets can work going first, but it's a little bit awkward, and that's where the Druid Swarms comes in. Druid Swarm turns droplets into another interruption, and it's also another Bystial that you can play. So I guess I'll segue into that explanation. So the thing about Bystials, and the reason I like them so much, is because it makes it so you don't have to play into talents against like a lot of decks, but it makes it as well that you don't lose to Gimmick Puppet Lock if you face Branded, because one of the biggest issues of playing no hand traps is losing to Gimmick Puppet. That's where the Bystials comes in, and like the extra Bystials rather, which it helps makes it so your deck can play through boards even when you're going second, but at the same time it makes it so you don't lose to Gimmick Puppet Lock, which is kind of important because it did win German Nationals this past weekend. So that's just like one of the contingency plans that you have to make. I know that I've been saying that word a lot, but you know, it's one of those things that you have to keep in memory and just make like a good concession. But yeah, that's it for these. As I said last week, every Centurion list I've been seeing was playing this card, so I still haven't drawn it, so I can't say anything on it. Maybe if I play Thrust, it could be a little bit different, but until then, I'll just stick with these, and I don't think I need to explain the rest. I took out Evenly Matched. It's not that Evenly Matched is a bad card at all. In fact, I think Evenly Matched is even better now than it was like in the past 2 to 3 months. However, I just felt that I was not playing against like the really big stun decks a lot. And not only that, but the boards that people were often making were boards that I realistically don't really need evenly to help me push through them. So that's it for that. Like, I might just put evenly back in the deck and just take out the shifter engine, because the shifter engine just didn't work at all for me this past weekend. But yeah, that's about it. So matchups, because I do want to talk about a few matchups, because it does contribute to how I built the deck. On Thursday, my first loss was to, trying to remember the deck. I think it was Jubel. Yeah, I lost to Jubel. The rocket engine just betrayed me, and I couldn't play the game. And on match 3, I won the second match 2-0. The third match was against Added Nister, and if you know anything about Added Nister, that deck pretty much will always beat you if you don't have hand traps and you don't have like a kaiju type monster in your deck, because they'll just summon the Arrival, and the Arrival is 6k attack, and there's no real way to get rid of that card in this deck. Like, the highest attack threshold that we can reach is 4500, which is because of Chaos Archfiend, and that's not enough to like beat over the Arrival. So I lost to that, and that is just like one of the sacrifices that you have to make with this deck. Like, just facing those really rogue matches is like one big sacrifice, but you're pretty much doing it so you can beat the other more popular decks. Like, losing to an Addict Nister player on like locals is fine if it means that you can top beating like Snake Eyes and Kashtira and Fire King and Tempai Dragons and Melodious and all those other decks. So that's what happened on Thursday. Saturday, I faced. Oh, I guess the other match I played on Thursday was against Goatee, the Goatee Runic deck, and the thing about Goatee is this card is a win condition. This card pretty much wins the matchup, because when they have their fish banished and they try to activate like in the standby phase, you can just Dispater to negate one and shuffle the other one back. So they automatically lose 2 resources because of Dispater. So like this card pretty much just beats that matchup. So yesterday, which was Sunday, happy Father's Day, I faced Tempai Dragons, which was my only loss. It was against Gary, the fellow EJ team member. I basically bricked on the Chaos Space Engine, and game 1 I lost to Cosmic Cyclone as well as Rivalry. I had a way to play on Rivalry, but it involved Branded Beast, it involved like the Centurion field spell, and he had the Cosmic Cyclone for one of them, which yeah, I couldn't play around that. Like Cosmic Cyclone main deck was kind of wild, but it did win him game one. Game two, yeah, I just bricked. So match number 2 was against, I'm trying to remember. Match number 2 was against what was the match? It was Tempai the first one. The second match was the second match was against the ritual deck, Drytron. It was against Drytron. Bystial just win the matchup. I can't say more than that. Match 3 was against Snake Eye Fire King. I should have lost that match because I opened no Centurion cards, but I interrupted my opponent with Herratic Seals, and then I had Branded Beast into rotation. So the combination of Herratic Seals plus summoning Druid's Worm and triggering it for Branded Beast, which is the other reason why we're citing 2 more Druid's Worms, was just enough interruptions to just get him out of Flamberge rotation. And another game I won because I baited his droplets and imperm, and after he resolved both droplets and imperm on me, I summoned Chaos Angel with both light and dark attributes, and he could not play around that because he didn't have any actual outs to this. So he didn't have I had both Hit and Auxila on board, and he couldn't out, but he had no out to both under the protection of Chaos Angel because he already exhausted his like imperm and droplets, and it won me the match. There's another really crazy thing about this deck. Like, this card just wins a lot of games on its own. You need very specific outs to this. Otherwise, it's just like the same issue as Addict Mister. And the last match was against Vanquish Soul. Game 1 lasted over 30 minutes because they resolved their entire engine. Again, we're not playing hand traps, so it was a given. They resolved their entire engine. They had all their monsters into rotation. My opponent had like a 7 to 8 card hand every turn, and which just put me into a position where I just have to fight against all the resources. However, 2 key cards that helped the matchup were Book of Eclipse and the Branded Beast. These 2 cards really helped the matchup, so I managed to outgrind him, and it won me the match. But very, very long game, won. But yeah, that's it for a deck report. Next week is when, or this following week rather, is when the new Battles of Legends come out. So I will probably be building something with that in mind. So next week might not be a Centurion again. It could be another deck, but you have to stay tuned. I will be talking more in depth about a few things to note about this format, because this format is actually changing despite like the same decks being played in the past few months, and there are very good reasons for it, and that also helps with the the plans of you building your deck properly. And post Terminal Revenge, I think the format will change once more, and if Konami decides to give us a Forbidden Limited list, which they will for the OCG, I'm not sure about the TCG yet, there might be other just more drastic changes. But until then, keep practicing and keep dueling.